security bill, and we're all going to work with and together to make sure an all the above energy approach is what we're going to take. But with that, I want to thank him. I think it was very good, and as one Democrat, I agree wholeheartedly. I'd like to work with you on that. I ask unanimous consent that Senator Cornyn, and Senator Bennett be permitted to complete our...
Negotiations are taking place right now, everybody, on new stimulus bills. Many Social Security beneficiaries and low-income households may be eligible to claim $100 stimulus checks. These payments may be provided on a monthly basis, and Democrats in House Representatives have introduced stimulus relief proposals aimed at sending direct payments to Americans to help cover high gas prices. The plans have some similarities to the one that sent $1,400 checks to millions of people last year during the crisis. This week, oil prices continue to fall even further after the Biden administration said it would urge lawmakers to suspend the 18.4 cents a gallon federal gas tax in an effort to take the heat off of prices. One proposal by Mike Thompson, John Larson, and Lauren Underwood would send what they call an energy rebate of $100 per month for individuals or $200 per couples, plus $100 for each dependent. The payments would go to people based on their income and would follow the same guidelines as the 2021 economic impact payments. Single filers earning up to $75,000 or married couples filing jointly earning up to $150,000 will be eligible as well. Peter DeFazio, everybody, announced the Stop Gas Price Gouging Tax and Rebate Act. The bill calls for households to receive a monthly advance tax credit, similar to last year's monthly child tax credit. The money would come from taxing oil companies for what DeFazio calls excessive corporate profits. In an official statement, DeFazio said Big Oil will pay a one-time 50% windfall profit tax on any adjustable taxable income in 2022 that exceeds 110% of their average adjustable taxable income during pre-crisis levels between 2015 and 2019. The size of the payments to Americans would be based on how much money is raised by the tax on the oil companies. A similar bill introduced by March 10th also targets big oil companies but calls for quarterly payments to Americans who meet the same income thresholds. The extra tax would hit large oil companies that produce or import at least 300,000 barrels of oil per day, or did in 2019. Representative Khanna, one of the two main sponsors of the company, said that companies will owe a per barrel tax equal to 50% of the difference between the current price of a barrel of oil and the pre-crisis average price per barrel between 2015 and 2019. Khanna said it would impact companies like ExxonMobil and Chevron, but smaller oil companies would be exempt. He estimates that at $120 per barrel of oil, it will result in a single filer getting $240 per year and joint filers receiving $360. And according to an agency watchdog, the IRS backlog of tax returns has swelled over the past year, despite efforts to clean the pile up. The Taxpayer Advocate Service shared in its mid-year report to Congress that there were 20 million unprocessed paper returns as of May 31st, up from 20 million the year prior.
For your service and for being here today.
Congress has signed a new bill, everybody. Americans are eligible to claim an extra $125, and extra bonus relief checks. This comes as state officials pass new relief legislation. Indiana has another budget surplus, and Governor Eric Holcomb wanted to disperse to people in the state. Early this month, the governor announced he wanted to distribute $1 billion in tax relief to help people in the state dealing with inflation. Now this week, he has announced plans to call lawmakers back into a special session on July 6th. Under his plan, each taxpayer will receive about $225, and that's in addition to the $125 of automatic tax refund that the governor pledged to each Indiana taxpayer. Another 2 million people in the state have already received a $125 tax refund by direct deposit. Refunds for more than 2 million other Indiana taxpayers are still being processed, and state officials expect them to be mailed later this summer. Now, people in the state, such as the governor's office, said earlier this year that 4.3 million Indiana residents will get an automatic $125 refund. That means that just under half of the tax refunds have been processed so far. And now, everybody, Congress also passed a bill extending some food assistance measures for anti-hunger advocates. They have called for critical care as more parents struggle with the rising cost of inflation. Less than a week before the measures were set to end, crisis-era child nutrition waivers helped millions of people get access to the meals in both school and during the summer weeks. Now, the bipartisan legislation now heads to the president's desk for his signature. It would extend some of the dozens of child nutrition waivers that Congress gave the Agricultural Department. Would not extend the most groundbreaking rules of the federal waivers, one that made school breakfast and lunches free to all students regardless of their families. Now, after passing House Representatives bill, the bill went to the Senate before the Senate. Now, after passing the House Representatives through a majority vote, the bill went before the Senate, where Rand Paul pushed for the return of the reduced priced meat category. The bill passed unanimously in the Senate, with that change as the clock ticked toward getting the bill passed in time, forcing the bill back to the House of Representatives for a second vote with the revision in place. Having to pay for reduced price meals is significant for many families. Before March 2020, children and families whose incomes were at or below 130% of the federal poverty level were eligible for free school meals, while those in families whose incomes were 135% of the poverty level were eligible for reduced price meals.
To inquire.
Secretary Yellen, thank you so much for being here, and I'd like to follow up on a letter that Senator Elizabeth Warren and I sent to you and Commissioner Reddick in April. This letter requested information on steps that Treasury and IRS are taking to ensure that low-income taxpayers are not unfairly audited at far greater rates, and we are still awaiting a response. I'm encouraged that Treasury's budget request highlights the need for new resources and especially new skilled staff, including revenue agents, to focus on tax fairness and audits of large businesses, partnerships, and high-wealth individuals. How would these resources change the audit strategy of the IRS to lift the unfair burden on low-income taxpayers, especially EITC filers who are audited at 4.5 times greater a rate than other taxpayers with less than $500,000?
So first, let me thank you for your very thoughtful letter. And I think what's happened here is that over the course of the last decade, the resources available to the IRS have been simply gutted, and it's meant it doesn't have the capacity to enforce our tax laws as they apply to high-end evaders. So what's happened is that the audit rates at the top of the wealth and income distribution have fallen off far more quickly than the audit rates of those at the bottom. And that is simply utterly unfair. And it doesn't address the tax gap estimated at $7 trillion over the next decade. That tax gap reflects underpayment by high-income taxpayers. So we very much hope that Congress will provide the long-term assured funding that the IRS needs to hire those professionals who have the skills and are able to